everybody, it's Daddy1424.
And this is Nexus.
And we are
TMPG.
And today we're here to talk to you about some rumors, some speculations, and allegations.
That's right. I mean, right now there's a lot of stuff going around. We're looking at the Wii U supposedly coming out this year. We have Xbox 720 or Nextbox or whatever they're calling it, plus the PlayStation Orbis, maybe announced this year officially, maybe next year. Who knows what's going on, but we're here to bring you some a little bit of a scoops of what we got.
And we'll complete the Orbis Vitae, so the circle of life for you guys. So we're going to answer those questions, and we're going to start off with the speculations, and we'll move on to our first topic in a moment.
That's right. Now, one thing I want to point out with this here is that we're looking at everything now. There's been so much speculation, but we want to do kind of a heads-on now, early in the game, and see what to expect. That's what this video is all about. All right, guys? Let's take a look.
So first off the bat, we're going to be talking about the Wii U and just some of the hardware and whatnot that we can expect to see from it. So you guys all know what the current Wii U looks like, and if you don't, well then you've probably been under a rock for a little bit of time, and I'm sure you can find it on the net somewhere. Yeah. So what we're going to see is a very similar design with the Wii U, probably more of a round shape, probably a little bit bigger as well, obviously when you have that round versus the straight edges. One of the things we're going to see on the Wii U, or supposedly might see on the Wii U, is going to be an SD card slot, and that can provide good and bad. Gives you, I guess, expandable memory up to 32 gigs, because I only know SD cards go up to 32 gigs. That's kind of a bad, but on the other hand, it could be good when you're porting that over to the controller, but that's a whole other topic we're going to talk about. So that's, I guess, what we can expect from the Wii U.
Exactly. Now for the 720 now, with the 720 and the Orbis, there's not a lot of info to go on, so we're just going with some of our sources right now. And for the 720, we're looking at more of a spherical sort of system. Now, I find this very unconventional. I don't know if, although this is all like, I guess, speculation and rumor at this point, I don't think that's how the system will look, because realistically, you knock that thing, even if it's got a proper stand, you knock it over, it's going to roll, and this is a pretty heavy-duty piece of hardware.
Well, unless it just keeps rolling and rolling.
Maybe that's how the system is. Maybe it's meant to roll, you know, with all this. We'll talk about it, Connect functionality, but you know, that maybe, who knows. But, you know, I do see a heavy redesign, definitely a smaller system, packing a lot of power in a small little shell. What about the Orbis?
Well, the Orbis, we've seen some of the potential devices. If you haven't had an opportunity to go, please go check out our other video. We have a PlayStation Orbis video talking about all the goodies in there. So you guys need to check that out. We actually have prototype images there. Definitely. With that in mind, it's a very futuristic design. There's some speculations of a clear square backing with more of a circle base, almost similar to what he said. Now, I guess the more logic in that case would be that it has a square backing that's clear, so you're not just putting it down as a almost like an Easter egg. It does have something to stand on. But as to how practical that really is, we've talked about it in our Orbis video, and we'll say it now, we don't really think that is practical. It's too big of a jump from, you know, like we saw a jump from the PS2 to PS3. Now to go from the PS3 to the Orbis, the jump just doesn't seem like it lines up. So what we'll see will come in the future, and we'll have to find out.
Exactly. And, you know, kind of to wrap all that up, we're looking at the hardware now, and the only one that does seem logical is the Wii U, but it's still too early to tell for the 720, the Orbis. But it'll be interesting to see where they bring in, because right now with all these, you know, the iPhones and the Android tablets taking the gaming market, they want to bring out something that's really flashy and really new. So it's going to be interesting to see where they go with this.
Everything's hush-hush. We're not supposed to talk about this. But in any case scenario, so we finish up the hardware. Let's move on to our next topic.
Let's go to the next one.
Alright, so the next topic, you guys obviously heard it, was specs, and we're going to talk about that, so what we can expect. And I'm going to start off again with the Wii U. Some of the things that we're looking at possibly seeing is what they're calling a Power 7 for the processor. Not quite sure what exactly, if it's quad-core or whatnot. I'd have to imagine a quad-core. But it's supposed to be the same processor that's actually found in the Watson supercomputer. As to how legit that is, I don't know. We'll have to find out. Yeah. GPU, obviously that's the graphics portion of it. What we're going to be seeing there is AMD Radeon HD chip. AMD is a very popular thing that's being used by a lot of different companies, and it's kind of current right now. So you know, future, I don't know how far this is going to go, but right now it is the thing, the AMDs. So again, that's what we're expecting from the specs of the Wii U.
All right, for the 720 now, or Nextbox, or whatever they want to call it, there's been a lot of speculation. It's, again, really early to tell, but what we can expect to see, I've heard some rumblings from some developers and things like that who've received dev kits, and the dev kits are calling for stuff like 16-core interlaced processors. That's huge. I mean, we're talking like, you know, infinite number of power possibilities there. I just can't believe that we could be looking at that for our CPU. GPU, so again, this is just speculation at this point, but we are looking at an extremely powerful system. GPU-wise, I've heard some interesting rumblings as well, because the GPU, it looks like it'll be either a dual-core or quad-core GPU. Maybe possibly dual core, but what they'll be doing differently. Whereas most times now when they interlace two dual cores, they run in tandem, they run together, and they basically just multiply the power. However, what they're speculating now is that these two GPUs or 4 GPUs will each run different processes. So one will be, loading in textures, one will be, building environments, different than one will be just, running general graphic information, different things like that. So with that being in mind, you're not gonna, if one lags down, the others won't, and you'll get a more
going to see a lot
crisp,
smoother gameplay. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now what about the Orbis?
Orbis has been very, very, again, everything to all these have been hush-hush. And Orbis is one of those, very little spec information. Obviously, we can take guesses, but again, they're shots in the dark at this point.
Yeah.
We could say probably a quad core.
At least.
If the Xbox, 720 or an Xbox is going to be doing a 16 core, we'd have to imagine probably, if not matching, maybe even beyond. PlayStation tends to be very good, or Sony tends to be very good with putting the power into their systems. So I think we can see things like that. And yeah, again, that's very, very hush-hush on the Orbis at this point.
Exactly. Now, we did mention it in our Orbis video. Again, don't forget to take a look at that. But just kind of give you an idea of what we're looking at for the PlayStation Orbis. Naughty Dog, developers for Uncharted, recently did a hiring. They put a hire out for some developers. Right now, Uncharted 3, one of the best looking PlayStation 3 games, has an 80,000 polygon count per character, which is still very high. It's very good for this generation. But they were touting up to 1 million polygons per character for the Orbis, which is just, think about that, fathom that for a second. So thinking of all this here, we're looking at big stuff for the future.
You're almost talking 10 times the amount what you currently see in some of the games right now. So 10 times the graphics. I mean, just you're talking crisp detail.
Yeah.
Anyways, end of the day, it's all going to be interesting, and this has kind of been a roundup of specs, but we have to move on to the controllers.
Absolutely.
So we're talking about controllers.
Yeah.
My favorite part of this all.
Yeah, because forget the system may have all that power, but this is how you connect to it.
Exactly, and there's been a lot of hype about these. So let's start with the Wii U. I'm sure you guys have all seen it. It was one of the most touted features about the Wii U when they announced it back in the last E3 we had. Was the touchscreen, kind of like almost like a PlayStation Vita, I guess, comparison, because you have that in the market today.
A little bit bigger, but same idea.
Exactly, and some of the things we're talking about spec-wise for that controller, you're talking a touchscreen, you're talking front-face camera, you're talking NFC technology, you're talking, comes obviously with the stylus. I'm trying to remember if there's anything else there. I think that's pretty much everything in my head that I can pretty much wrap around right now. But again, pretty nifty little device that you have for your controller. And one of the features they're also touting is the ability to be able to take the game from the TV, swipe it into your controller, and pick it up and play it. Kind of, like Nexus was saying to me earlier, like the remote play function. So again, remote controls or controllers are becoming a really big part of the system. And we're going to talk about some of the other systems and what they offer, and especially, talking about controllers being a big part, that leads over to the next topic, which would be Xbox 720.
Exactly. Now here's the thing with 720, we're talking here about controllers, but the main focus for the 720 is you are going to be the controller. And I know we've heard this before with the Kinect, but with the Kinect 2, the way they're touting this is that it's going to be beyond what we see now. With the Kinect now, it works very well. I mean, we have it, we use it.
Isn't it always beyond?
Yeah, it's supposed to be beyond. But the thing with this one here, now, as you know, what we mentioned in the specs, we're looking at a potential 16 cores on the system. They're talking that the Kinect alone could use up to 4 of those cores. Why, you ask? Well, because they'll be able to track things down just up to your fingertips. Now it'll be able to track more parts of you and with finer detail. On top of that, it's going to be focusing on more people. So instead of, I think the standard now is 4, be expanding that more, so big game rooms now and stuff like that you'll be playing. But of course, we do expect a controller for the more hardcore gamers, but the main focus seems to be on the Kinect 2. What about the Orbis?
Okay, the Orbis is some interesting stuff that I guess more my personal speculations. I mean, I guess from a professional standpoint, or the common answer would be, well, to expect the next evolution of the DualShock. And I guess that's to a certain level understandable. My personal prediction is going to be heavy integration with the Vita. We've heard about it. Make sure you check out that Vita video. It's not about, my apologies, not the Vita video, the Orbis video, because it's crucially important for some of this information. But heavy integration with the Vita. Orbis Vitae means circle of life, and it's completing the circle of life. So we're going to have the heavy integration of remote play capabilities, possibly using your Vita as a controller. I can definitely see that as an option.
I can see that.
When you look at things like the Wii U and you see how they already have that in place with their controllers, why not take the next evolution of that handheld system and integrate it into the Vita, especially knowing that there's going to be such a heavy focus on that. So all of these controllers at the end of the day really tout something unique, and I believe the uniquest features to each other system in some extent.
Yeah, and that's the funny thing too, is that before closing into our next topic here, one of our last topics, really it's interesting to see that each system, whereas all previous generations were very similar except for the Wii, but look how that turned out. This is now each system has their own distinct kind of look to it. It's also interesting to see that we haven't heard anything about PlayStation moving to the Orbis, more with the PS Vita. So it's interesting to see where they're going with these systems.
Definitely. So let's move on to our next topic.
Absolutely.
All right. So with every successful console launch, we need software to complement that. And first, we're going to be talking about the Wii U. So we have expected titles like Ninja Gaiden, maybe a new Smash Brothers, a new Mario of sorts, and lastly, I'd even go as far as saying maybe a Mario Kart. With those titles in mind, looking at some of the things they've done with implementation, for example, like Ninja Gaiden, being able to throw the stars at your enemies, like using your controller. I think we're going to see more of a adult-tailored games, specifically more pertaining to the Wii U, than what we saw with the last integration of the Wii, which is more heavily kid-focused. But that's pretty much it from the software camp out of the Wii U.
That's right. Now for the 720, again, very early to tell. Of course, we can expect the usual, a lot of cross-platform between the 720 and the Orbis. Exclusive-wise, I don't expect to see a lot of exclusives right at the front. There's a new Forza that's coming out this year and another new Forza coming out next year. Then on top of that, we have, Gears of War, which supposedly is finished. I've heard rumblings of maybe a prequel, but I think that may be this platform. And of course, then you're looking at Halo. I knew there's a new Halo that's coming out later this year. So I don't think we'll see any of those exclusives right away, but there will be a lot of great titles coming out, I'm sure.
And on the Orbis end, I'm actually going to go off on the opposite end of what he said with the 720. I'm going to say we're probably going to expect to see a lot of exclusives. When you look at their staple franchises that they have in place now, there's Uncharted, the other one that they're looking at, obviously God of War, and Gran Turismo. So I think we're going to expect to see those. I think we might even see some new games. I know Naughty Dog was working on a new game that was trying to branch away from the Uncharted series. We might maybe see an integration of that on the new system. So again, a lot of exclusives. Sony's pretty much a heavy hitter when it comes to that, and I think we can expect to see that there.
Absolutely. So now that we've kind of gone through everything here, let's do a final roundup, shall we?
And talk about what we think.
That's right.
So after all this, software, hardware, all that good stuff, controllers, we want to talk about the end in all predictions. So I guess I will start with, I should do a little bit backwards. I'm going to start with the Xbox 720 on my end. Reason for that being is one of the things I want to mention with the Xbox 720 is we talked about the 16 core and we talked about the new Kinect taking up the 4 cores. My biggest problem I foresee with the Xbox 720 is the implementation of the Kinect 2. Kinect didn't do so well. And, I mean, it did decent, don't get me wrong, but I still think people prefer the physical controller over like your, I guess, imaginary controller where you're holding up your gun and shooting your gun like this. Perfect example, using the move and use the sharpshooter. I still like having that physical thing in my hand and knowing that I can turn it left and right and not trying to do it like I'm pretending I'm holding a gun. So I don't know if we're at the age of eliminating that controller, and I really hope that they don't just focus on the Kinect 2. If they can still bring on a physical controller, obviously Xbox sales will do well. Microsoft usually always does well. Right? There's a fan base in the community out there for them. And again, that would be my biggest concern if I had to mention one with the 720.
That's right. So yeah, so now let's look at the Wii U. Now the Wii U, the thing I have a problem with the Wii U is that it may be too little too late for Wii. Now, a lot of people always talked about how the Wii sold amazingly well, but here's the problem. It sold amazingly well. They put so much shovelware out there that the system just sat, and a lot of people bought it and it sat there. No one used it. And actually where they thought initially they were opening the market to all these new types of gamers.
New demographic, yeah.
It actually didn't work like that in the end because they didn't support it with proper software. So, it's now that they're bringing out this new system, maybe a lot of people are going to shy away from it. The other thing, of course, is that as they announced at E3 that the Wii U is going to be as powerful. I stress that. As powerful as a PS3 and an Xbox 360. But with an Orbis and a 720 coming out, it's going to bury that. And already people are very speculative of the Wii.
You're coming to the game late, and you're trying to play catch up, and that's really not going to set you up for a good start. But at the end of the day, one of the things I wanted to actually say, we'll go over talk about the Orbis. I expect to see phenomenal things from the Orbis. I think at the end of the day, what's going to come down to between the two, we had this issue initially with the Sony and the PS3 and the Xbox 360 was the separate launch times. I think this time Sony's going to be smart about it, launch the system simultaneously. I think with that, with the integration of the Blu-ray player, it will be interesting to see what 720 has to offer. Are they going to come out with a new equivalent technology? But I think all in all, we're going to see strong sales numbers. It's also going to come down to the price. The price tag always ends up being hefty on these things, and it can deter a certain market from picking it up or people waiting for that price drop. Case in point, PlayStation Vita.
Yeah, and let's even look at that. Let's talk a little bit about the Vita. I'm hoping that they've learned from this. Even the PS3, a lot of people remember. Do you guys remember the whole Genji incident with the PlayStation 3 announcement? If you don't, go back and take a look because it was some funny stuff. And the PlayStation 3 didn't come out with a lot of good initial software. It had some good ones, but not as much as we like. Then now with the PS Vita, you know, a lot of money went into marketing, and they had some good initial software, but again, a little bit of a dry spell. I'm hoping that with the PlayStation 3, and especially since if they launch at the same time, we're going to get a lot of cross-platform games. I'm hoping we're going to see a lot of titles out of the gate.
One last thing I wanted to say that just came to me was actually about your comment about the Wii U and the demographics. How they tried to appeal the original Wii to a new demographic, and it may have worked to a certain extent, but it didn't really. At the end of the day, let's face the facts. The people who are playing the game are the same demographic who grew up with the games back when we were kids. So people from the 1984s and earlier, and maybe a little bit later. But you're not getting those 90 babies. You're getting those 80 babies, and maybe even those 70 babies. And those are the same consumers that are going to be picking up your Orbis and your 720. And that's why I think that whole appealing to the new demographic is only going to work for so long. Yeah. And that's why they're trying to shift that focus onto the new. So I just wanted to add that in. All in all, it's been a good roundup, a good conversation.
I think so, and I think that we show a lot of promise for the gaming world in the future. I'm very, at the end of the day, I'm just going to say that I'm very speculative to the Wii U. I think the 720 and the Orbis are going to be the way to go, but it's really too early to tell. Maybe the Wii U still has some surprises in store.
At the end of the day, you make the choice. So now the work is done, and we're here to talk person for a moment.
That's right. So, as we see, this is actually our second last video for Season 2. We have a brand new season coming out in just about a week or so.
Exactly. We're going to have guest appearances.
Maybe not more than guest appearances. We may have a brand new format coming. We may have a few, I don't know, giveaways, contests. I don't want to say anything. You got to be watching.
So make sure you're subscribed, make sure you like, and make sure you leave comments. Because that's part of the community. If not now, well, there's no better time than the present.
Exactly. Don't wait till later. Do it now.
Exactly. That's been all. Peace. Love.
Take care, guys. Have a good one.